Good evening. Zach, can you hear me? Good evening and welcome to our community meeting for Killam. I'm just going to quickly go over the agenda for tonight. We are going to show you a video this evening from a company that is helping us out getting some information out there. And then Dr. Milichewski is going to talk about the pre-K and the potential of having all pre-K under one roof. And then Jenny Katajamaki from LBA, our designer, is going to talk about our different options. I think we're up to 10 different options or so. And talk about,
but then back down to 4.
Yeah, up to 10 and down to 4. And talk about how we need to start working on cutting those options down until we can get to a preferred design option, which will happen in August. So we will start. Should we start with the, Dr. Milichewski, would you like to talk about Cartoon EDU for a tiny bit? And then we'll queue up that video.
Great. Well, good evening, everyone. So we're about to see a video from Cartoon EDU, Cartoon based off of Dave Cartoonin, who is the CEO and founder of the company. This, the goal of these videos are to try to provide the community with information about each of the various stages of the MSBA process. We know that it can feel like a cumbersome process for those who are intimately involved, and even more for those in the community. So hopefully, we think that, or we believe that these videos will help the community kind of understand each of the key processes and have as phase of the process and have as much information as they need as they kind of move forward towards the spring of 2025 when we expect to have it on the ballot. So you'll see a video tonight which has one longer video which really has 4 separate components that will break off into eventually and break off into video 1, 2, 3, 4. But for tonight, we just kind of put them all together. As you watch, if you have feedback after or questions after, happy to answer those. But just want to make sure everyone understands the intent is to give as much information out to the community as possible. One last thing is Cartoon EDU has partnered with at least a half dozen communities that I'm aware of at this point too. You can see some of the videos on Wilmington's posted theirs, Canton's posted theirs. There's a bunch of others that are out there that I've found to be really informative as well. So, Jackie, you want to cue it up?
You may have heard that Reading Public Schools is exploring the renovation, addition, or replacement of the Killam Elementary School in partnership with the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or MSBA. The MSBA process is like a marathon. It takes persistence, endurance, and a dedicated program that takes years to achieve. This short video summarizes the first leg of this marathon, which started in 2022 when Killam School was accepted into the program. We will show the opportunity Reading has to secure tens of millions of dollars in MSBA funding for the project, detail the physical need for a renovation, addition, or replacement of Killam School, describe how members of our community have envisioned what a new or renovated Killam School would provide our students and the entire town of Reading, and provide a timeline of the MSBA process with key dates of approval. Reading has a rare opportunity to fund a Killam School project with the MSBA. The MSBA is a state agency that helps local school districts pay for the design and construction of schools. It's competitive and needs-based. When Killam was accepted into the program in 2022, it was one of only 17 projects across the Commonwealth selected in that round. MSBA's acceptance rate for projects like this can be as low as 10 to 15%. The work is tough, but the payoff is significant. By completing the MSBA marathon, Reading will unlock tens of millions of dollars in grants that won't come out of our local property tax assessments. Since its acceptance, Reading has been working to meet the MSBA's eligibility requirements. This started by forming a school building committee of school administrators, town officials, and community volunteers. We also selected an owner's project manager, or OPM, who helps guide us through the process. One of the OPM's first tasks is to help the school building committee select a designer for the project. This completes the project team, which immediately began working to determine Reading's physical and educational needs to develop a next-generation education for our youngest learners at Killam School. Reading Public Schools applied for MSBA funding for Killam School because the building is at the end of its useful life. While our school and town facilities departments do incredible work keeping it clean, safe, and operating, Killam School was built in 1969 and has never undergone a major renovation. The building's settling foundation is damaging the building, and any renovation might require major seismic upgrades. The building's original plumbing fixtures turned up lead contamination, making the water unsafe to drink. The plumbing also does not include fire sprinklers, and large portions of the building are not accessible. Killam's mechanical system is also a patchwork, including some areas without ventilation. The main electrical equipment has never been upgraded and needs replacement. The fire alarms don't adequately cover the building, and the school's lighting is inefficient and doesn't meet today's building standards. The faces of the building, its walls, doors, windows, and siding all need to be replaced. And outside the Killam School site has major stormwater treatment issues that are affecting the properties abutting it. After more than a half century in service, we believe the Killam School can no longer serve the vision of Reading Public Schools to support our youth to become the innovative leaders of tomorrow. Another early and key component of the MSBA Marathon is inviting our community into a visioning process for what a new or renovated Killam School could provide our students and our community. This group of students, teachers, parents, administrators, and volunteers toured schools, shadowed life at Killam, and engaged in workshops to produce this vision for a new Killam that has safe and flexible spaces, showcases student work, supports passionate, self-directed learning, and curiosity and purposeful play, with opportunities to experience nature, offers sensory and calming opportunities throughout, and is designed to serve communities of students at a particular grade level, Killam as a whole school, and the town and residents of Reading. With this vital community feedback, Killam School Building Committee produced another MSBA required step, an educational plan, which provides the guiding principles to the design team as they draft plans for a new Killam. The ED plan, as it's called, calls for flexible, small learning communities or pods with shared breakout spaces, space to support community and a sense of belonging, a library as the heart of the building to create a town square with a STEM classroom attached, embedded special education services, small group spaces between classrooms, and sensory opportunities throughout. Evaluating our physical and educational needs at Killam School are the key components of the first leg of the MSBA Marathon, feasibility. Our school building committee is now evaluating a preliminary design program, a series of site options that consider whether to replace, renovate, and/or add on to Killam. Their single choice of the best option is called their preferred schematic report, which will go to the MSBA for its approval. If the MSBA approves this choice, our marathon moves to the second line. That's where the project team produces the schematics of a new or renovated Killam School. This design will also come with a budget, which gets us to the third leg, approval by our community to finance the portion of the project that's not covered by MSBA funds. We anticipate seeking town approval for the project budget in spring 2025. If the town approves the plan and its budget, the fourth and final leg is final design, then construction of a new or renovated Killam School. In Reading Public Schools, it isn't just our vision to instill a joy of learning and inspire the leaders of tomorrow. We view education as the responsibility of our schools and the community, which is why we want to work collaboratively and cooperatively with the town of Reading and with you. The Killam School Building Project has its own website, killam.com. This is where to go for every detail, document, archived meeting, and notices for future meetings and public gatherings to share your feedback.
About sort of the,
I just unmuted you. It was this.
Kim, can you hear me now?
Very.
Thank you.
Somehow CPDC is being, the audio from a CPDC meeting is being heard from people who are watching this.
Allowing people to multitask, right? Perfect. All right, so Jackie, we can pull up the presentation then. So kind of before, so in a little bit, our design team is going to come up to speak about just the, you heard the 10 potential designs, which now maybe, narrowing down towards 4. And you'll see that many of those, about half the designs include pre-K under one roof, which are moving all of our RISE program to the Killam site. The other half of the options keep what is our current model, which I'll get into in a minute too. We thought that it was important that members of the community understood why is it that we believe that it's beneficial to have RISE under one roof. So, as people make decisions and think through things, they know sort of where we are kind of in our minds on this too. So I gave the same presentation last week at the Killam School Building Committee meeting. Given that many of you are also here for that too, I will likely just shorten this a little bit tonight, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have as well. So, Jack, you can go next slide. So I think everyone in the room is, I'm guessing, very familiar with the RISE program in our community. Some of the kind of high level overview. We is a program that is provided for free for many of our students, depending on their IEP related needs, and also it is a tuition based program for also many members of our community. So Jackie, if you go next slide, you'll see that currently the current capacity is about 150 students, which includes currently 72 students who have tuitioned in, and then 69 students who have students with disabilities, and then also 10 students who also get appointment-based services as well. That's split across 3 sites. So there's 2 classrooms at Killam currently, 2 classrooms at Wood End, and also then the remaining classrooms. The 6 classrooms are then based in the basement of the high school. You'll see that we also have a wait list right now of about 69 students going into next year. And that has been, I would say over the last couple of years, pretty similar where we've been between that number and maybe in some years closer to 100 on sort of the wait list for the program. We've also seen, kind of last point is we've seen an increase as the community knows we are required to provide services in a program for our students with disabilities, ages 3, 4, 5. We have seen the last couple of years an uptick in special education referrals that we believe will sort of require us to expand programming over the next couple of years. So where we are now is we're proposing consolidating all of the classrooms from Wood End and the high school to then be under one roof in the new Killam building. So as a result, this would open up spaces at Wood End and RMHS. Becky, you can go next slide. I think the obvious kind of group of students this would benefit would be the students in the RISE program, which I'll speak about. But there are other groups of students that we feel that this is also beneficial to. That's our students, kind of the district-wide model, which we'll speak about, and then maybe a group that may feel counterintuitive to think about when we're talking about RISE is our oldest students at our high school and the benefits of opening up the space in the high school would bring to our community. So I'm going to walk through each of those tonight. We can start with RISE. Next slide. I think this is probably the most obvious one for you to envision, sort of what is the benefit of having a school and a program under one roof versus spread across 3 sites. I think the kind of lists that are here are some of the benefits, but I'd like to give the kind of, to me, a piece of context that's important is that a lot of people, still think that pre-K is sort of a nice to have, sort of hear that perspective in the community for our youngest students. We believe that actually the RISE or the pre-K experience is perhaps the most influential and most impactful time in a student's educational experience. So ensuring that we have the highest of quality of program for our students, our youngest students, is going to pay dividends down the line. And as we know, the demands and the expectations on our pre-K students continue to rise, no pun intended, but it's really important that we invest in our youngest students to build the strongest foundation for our community. Some of the benefits conclude, and you probably could all write this list as well, is one, having all of our resources sort of under one roof, streamlining administration. Currently, our director, our team chair are moving between several sites during the day, ensuring consistent curriculum implementation. I said the same thing last time. Some of you gave me a look when I said curriculum in pre-K. Yes, there is curriculum is really important at the pre-K level, both academically and social and emotionally, and ensuring consistency in implementation by having programming under one site, and then allowing our staff to collaborate, allowing our staff to learn together, which we know is so important by having all of that under one roof. And then next slide as well. Having all of our leaders and all of our teachers out and visible in the community, that's a lot easier to have that when you're sort of under one school and under one roof, so that level of family and community engagement. Building better access to support student services. Many of our students are receiving special education services, speech, counseling, sometimes English language services as well. Having all of those sort of under one roof is a lot easier to ensure consistency and access to services than having, spanning across 3 sites. And then last but not least, I think this is the one that came to sort of our staff's mind the most, was they kind of having a sense of a school and pride and community where you feel like you're not just kind of a part of one other community, but you're really a RISE program and school altogether. I'd like to just also thank the RISE staff. For those, many of you I know have had students go through the RISE program. It's a wonderful program for our students, and we feel that also having all of the programming under one roof would ensure a better, even a stronger experience for our students. And I think if you ask the staff and you ask the leadership at RISE, they'd say something very similar as well. Shifting into the benefits for the district, I'm just going to tonight speak about 2. One is around services and supports and programming, and the other is around enrollment. So if you look at the enrollment, this is just a table taken from Jerome McKibben's 2022 RPS population enrollment forecast, which mapped out enrollment or projections through 2031 to 2032. If you are more interested in kind of learning more about the methodology and some of the assumptions that he makes, you can check it out in the presentation. Just click through the link. I think the headline for us is if you start to look at in the 26-27 year, you start to see a slight to moderate increase expected in our population K to 5, going from 1774 in 25-26 up to 1847 and 26-27, and continuing up till we get to 2031 to 2032 with 1,932 students across K to 5. Obviously, the further we go out, the much more assumptions that are built in the model. But I say these, it could go either way with that. But based off of what they, sort of founding off of the birth rate and recent births, McKibben feels pretty confident that we'll see at least a slight uptick starting in the year 25 or 26-27. A couple of points I'd like to make about this. People would ask them why would we go through over school choice? Why would we expand school choice or expanding our METCO program? Outside of the benefits to what I think they bring to the educational experience for all of our students, those are seats that we can also choose where we know that we have a class of 16 students. I know we have some space and we can add on to that class. It's a little harder to predict for seeing that enrollment increase in 26-27, those could be students who are coming from any sort of part of the community. And it's not as easy to pull kids maybe, from the Wood End district and the JE district to kind of make one neat class size. So it's a little harder to, kind of play around with these numbers. So having some more flexibility is important. We think that this would open up 2 classrooms at Wood End, which is a part of a larger strategy for us to be proactive about meeting what is potentially an enrollment increase over the next couple of years, instead of us having to 2 years from now think about purchasing new space, building new space. 2 classrooms is not going to move the needle tremendously, but it's part of what could be a larger strategy. We have a couple other spaces we could be creative with and feel like we'd be able to absorb that uptick without having to do anything drastic. Next slide. Other benefit for the district is we've seen just an increase in need in our district, I think both in Reading and probably in a lot of other districts as well. Specifically in Reading, we've seen an increase in our multilingual learner population, an increase in some of the complexity of the needs of our students with disabilities, and also seen an increase in students needing just tier 2 or more academic support, especially after COVID. And having these additional spaces for us to be creative and flexible with is really important for us to meet these services, which are many times required by law as well. As an example, we just had we feel like a growing need in all of our schools, but at Barrows, we were able to have a space that we were able to cut in half with the support of our facilities team and build out to then have 2 spaces. So I think even having 2 larger classrooms can help us sometimes even, expand that to have more spaces, which we think is becoming increasingly important for our district over the years to come, given student needs. And then the last benefit, which is one, again, that I think may not be as obvious to the community, is just the benefit for the high school. So this would open up that whole basement space, which if you've been down there is a sizable space to open up to expand what we've done with our innovation pathways. So over the last couple of years, our high school has added 5 innovation pathways at the high school, which is a programming that's supposed to align with what is really needed out in the world in high need and high demand industries, and give students engaging and hands-on experiences that align with sort of that need. We've opened up 5 pathways with the support of DESE, a computer science pathway, an engineering pathway, digital media, and then next year, clean energy, and also healthcare and social assistance. Right now we have the space right now to kind of just get those programs off the ground and running. However, we feel like with this additional space, some of the ideas of the high school, some of the ideas that are, the things we've seen in other communities are things like expanding our robotics lab, which is in the basement down there, to really be not only robotics, but computer science and technology, building an engineering lab to merge some of the CAD work with traditional hands-on construction. Our team will be taking a visit soon to Uxbridge High School, which that's been sort of one of their things they're most excited about with Innovation Pathways, is getting their hands-on sort of construction lab. And that's been a lot of students who would maybe think about other options for high school or staying in district to have opportunities at, yes, computer-aided design, but also sort of more traditional carpentry work as well. And there's a lot of money, as we've talked about, in grant funding in this work. We're not the only ones who are trying to pursue this, and the state and DESE are both really pushing this. We've secured over $495,000 the last two and a half years for more of this like innovative programming. So Jackie, if you go, we'll talk quickly a little bit so you kind of have an idea of what this looks like, kind of a deeper level. There's 182 students who are enrolled in the Innovation Pathways for next year. All of the Innovation Pathways culminate with either an internship in our community, with a capstone project, which is choosing a topic of a mini dissertation or a topic of interest to them and culminating with a written product on that area of focus, or which is most common for us right now, which is culminating in a dual enrollment class, which is a class that will give you college credits for taking the class at the high school level. We currently have partnerships with Endicott, Middlesex Community College, and UMass Lowell. Most of our Innovation Pathway programs will now be capped by a UMass Lowell course. We actually, in the past week, just are starting a partnership with UMass Boston as well. So hopefully having some more of those filtered in as well. Jackie, next slide. So what does this look like? And I think I had some good feedback from, I'll thank Tom today too, was saying, down the line, it'll be really helpful for the community to see, what exactly is this going to look like? We want to know if we clear out, kind of the space, what are these labs going to look like? And I think that's something that over the next couple of months, our team is going to put together. So when we come together, come back in November, December, January, we can say it would look like an engineering lab or look like a robotics lab that would have X, Y, Z. It is still a little bit more abstract at this point. 2 examples of things that have already come up as, potential areas of interest. Is anyone here in healthcare? No. So we are in the process of purchasing the $100,000 anatomatage 10 table, autopsy table, which is supposed to simulate a variety of sort of life processes. One in here, you can see the is being able to simulate all phases of childbirth, and another, kind of simulation able to trace the effects of disease on an aging body. But these are things that having our students sort of working with hands-on is something that is different than maybe the more traditional coursework around anatomy. And we think that sort of experience and being able to build that out in a lab would be really important for our students to, again, grow in the ways that we know the industry is calling for. On the right is and I should thank a couple of groups. We got the $100,000 from an earmark from the state, and also through a skills capital grant as well. And on the right, we also like to thank our legislators for their advocacy in helping us to purchase $25,000 in digital Nord keyboards, which have capabilities beyond obviously a typical keyboard. Any piano players here can speak? No? They're very good ones. Thanks, Jane. Yeah, so this is part of the digital music pathway, which is a combination of both graphic design and digital music production. But our students are wanting to get more into the opportunity, more than just music production, but music recording. You can see here that this allows for supporting more in-class activities, recording sessions, live performances, and obviously sort of more technical language around, that's from our department head, around sort of what those bring to our students, but also wanting them have requested a space for a recording lab, trying to follow a lot of the work that they've done at UMass Lowell, which has a really great recording program as well. So those are just a couple of the, kind of things that we've heard from the high school of like, we need more space to be able to build out these types of programs. I think we're just scratching the surface right now, and space has been a barrier for us in being able to expand in the ways that we want to expand. Jackie, you can go next slide. And then, again, I spoke a little bit about the senior internships, but just like to thank some of our local partners who have taken on seniors, who have also tried to get them sort of, many of them like out in the job field in areas that are of interest to them as well. And Jackie, that's it. So I'll pause there for just any questions, comment, feedback. I think just like in summary, I think that this is it's hard to argue with this being the sort of what's best for our RISE students in terms of providing those students with the best quality of programming. I do also think that this does allow the high school to really take that next step and open up some really exciting doors for our students, and allows us to be thoughtful and a little bit proactive about what may be coming with just student needs and enrollment as well. Thank you. All right. How do we want to, do I just ask people for questions? Do we?
Yeah, you need to give them the mic so people online can hear them.
Great. And am I moderating? Is that, others, anyone feel free to jump in too.
Thank you. I have to go up there.
No, you don't have to go up. You can speak from there.
Thank you. Can I hide?
Yeah.
I am 100% behind moving RISE to one place. And I love that idea. I've seen how it can streamline the use of staff and administration and build community. My question is, you mentioned that there were 69 to 100 people on the waiting list for RISE. Would this accommodate including more students? I know that 69 to 100 means that it's actually more than that, because you need the ratio of children with special needs and their peer groups. So my first question is about that. And the second question is about aspirations for the size of this new building. Will there be redistricting involved? And again, I'm not saying I'm against redistricting at all. It's just probably something the community would need to get used to the idea of, and busing would be the other question. I don't know if the laws, I think it's 2 miles, 2.5 miles apply to pre-K as well as the other older children. And then the fourth question was about modulars. Does this take into account the promise of the previous school committee to sell the modulars to get some money back, to invest that money back into our schools and accommodate those changes? Thank you.
Great questions. Great questions, and anyone else feel free to jump on. I'll start with the first one too. Unfortunately, this would not allow us to fully create enough space to have all the students come off the wait list. This would bring in both models, there is going to be two additional classrooms from what we have right now, which then, depending on what the ratio of that may be, we anticipate that would be somewhere of opening up 30 seats. So there's still going to be that demand out there. I just don't think at this point we could explore a model that would allow us to meet sort of everyone currently on the wait list. I think just looking at sort of what that would require in space. I have had some other teachers in districts say, have we explored other sites of places where we could have a satellite sort of spot, but that's counterintuitive to what we're trying to do here too. So I think unfortunately this would really only open up about 30 seats, and we haven't yet come up with a strategy to help us to fully meet the needs of or the demand from the community. And is that answer that first part? Or?
Yeah, it does. It's what I expected you to say, and something that people are going to need to hear.
Yep.
That it's not automatic.
Great.
That people will get off the waiting list because this new space has been created.
I know. If anyone has any ideas, I mean, we're all ears. I just wish we could, right? I'm glad you raised that too. I think it's important for the community to hear that. The second piece around redistricting, I think what we put in the kind of in the PSR document was that we expect, and what we told the MSBA is that we expect that there could be some slight tinkering around the margins where the sort of lines are right now. But we do not anticipate at this point having to do any major overhaul or redistricting. Again, we don't quite know what enrollment numbers will look like, how the demographic, how numbers could shift. But at this point, we think, tinkering around, some kids who may be on the line of these two schools, you may have to build that line out slightly. But we just don't have enough information at this point to be able to, say definitively what those lines would be. But probably some slight adjustments to those lines. But I wouldn't expect major redistricting. Anyone from the? Okay. Third, so what's that? Busing. So.
Very good.
No, it's just, so for pre-K, I do not believe, and I'm gonna say it's public, I could be wrong, if anyone has their phone to check, I don't believe the regulations would apply to pre-K students who are provided the services as a result of their IEP. So I believe that this would be a K to 12, I believe it's K to 12, but for students who are on IEPs and need transportation, we would certainly be able to provide that support and that service as well. Does anyone like to add anything to that? And then, sorry, I know you had
The modulars.
the modulars. So I don't think that's a great question. We've talked a little bit about it, but I don't think we've fully I see Tom getting ready to come up. You want that one?
I don't want it necessarily.
I'll give you what I thought, and Tom may agree or disagree. I don't know. Depending on sort of what tracks with that enrollment, I don't think this is a model that's going to allow us to totally do away with the modulars, right? I see that we have a slight increase in enrollment that's coming. We have a building here, Killam, that will be able to absorb a little bit more size. But when you're talking about having, close to, between a little over a half dozen classrooms provided through the, modulars, I just don't see a way that would be able to move away in one fell swoop from having the modulars. So,
I think the only thing I would add to that is, Sean and Carl can jump into, technically not called order, because we're not for this. Is that if you talk to some of our teachers, our modulars are some of our best classrooms right now, as it stands. So while we know they have a useful life, and it's generally in the 15-year range, some of them will be coming up on that towards the end of this cycle of this project. We haven't necessarily committed to getting out of them because of the redistricting type conversation that Dr. Malczewski mentioned as well, right? Some of the reasons we need them is we still have that many students at Barrows, we still have that many students at Birch, we still have that many students at Josh Wheaton. We might be able to release some of the pressure on those, but we still have the overall need from a programmatic perspective in each of those schools as well. So it doesn't, as Dr. Malczewski said, this doesn't solve any and every problem we have in the district. It does provide a little bit more growth and a little bit more headroom. And if and when those modulars come to their end of useful life, or as they get closer, we'll have to work with the PBC and town facilities and say, what is our next best option? Is it another project? Is it renewing a modular because we really only need to keep that modular in that space and that's the most economical for the next 15 years? We'll have to address it at that point in time. But as of right now, I don't think we have a commitment that says we're getting rid of that necessarily.
they're also some of the only air-conditioned classrooms, so they're very popular in September and in June too.
I would also add with the MSBA process that when you submit the statement of intent, you have a allowable number of students that we've put in there, and did not put in enough students to get rid of all the modulars. And I think that helped us to get into the process as well, right? So that's part of it.
And that gets at something with the RISE question I've heard of is I didn't sense that the community wanted what would be like a mega school that would open up sort of allow us to address some of these challenges maybe that we're addressing through modulars right now. And I don't think, and this is in conversation with a lot of the Killam staff too, that adding RISE preschool makes this feel like a mega school. The RISE preschool program will be a part of Killam, but it is really a standalone school as well. And I think when you see some of the designs of how Jenny's designed it, you can see sort of physically. So I think in the best ways, the school will feel a part of the Killam community, but also it will feel like its own sort of school too, with its own leader, with its own staff. So I think it with its own dismissal time. So I think it doesn't, I don't think would feel as, it feels different if you have 600 students, all K to 5 versus if, 150 of the students are pre-K students as well. Thank you for your thoughtful questions. I'm glad you raised them. I think those are ones that are important for the community to think through. Thank you. Questions?
There's a question online, maybe you can take while I'm setting up. What time is rise, start, and dismissal?
Did we put that as BSP?
It's 15, right?
I know the traffic designers, Mike, I think we'd have to go back and double check that too, because I think the traffic study had like outlined at least, a certain amount of time. And I believe it was going to have to be at least 15 minutes after.
That's what it is now.
Yeah, and I think the traffic, we can find it. Why don't we look that up and what the study while you're presenting, and then by the end of your presentation, I think we should be able to give that answer. Great, I'll pull that up. Do you have that as well?
Great, so I'm going to go through a few slides here to share what we've been doing on the design team side. If I can figure out how to advance my slides. There we go. Coming into a meeting with the Killam School Building Committee last week, we came in with 10 options, which are what we've looked at so far. They're up here on the screen. So we looked at 6 different options with the full pre-K enrollment that Dr. Milishevsky talked about, and 4 with the partial pre-K. We looked at an option that retains a part of the existing school. That's A1 over there. How can I point to things? I just got to stand over. We looked at, we turn out these lights, actually, it's kind of, the ones here in the front, it kind of washed out. Yeah, it doesn't. We looked at several different 3-story configurations. We looked at 2 options that would require some demolition of the existing school in order to build the new, which after we studied it, we determined that that would be too disruptive. And we looked at one really compact one, C1 over there, which is 2 stories, but kind of a flat pancake. Thank you so much, Mike. Hey. After all of this study, we, whoops, that's what I should have been looking at when I talked through the options. Okay, so the Killam School Building Committee last week made a recommendation to go forward with 4 options. One is not shown on here. It's an option that the MSBA requires us to study, and it's just keeping the existing school exactly as it is, but only upgrading anything that's not up to the current building code. We know that that's a complete non-starter because part of the problem is you don't have nearly enough space. You need to have like half as much space as you need. So we're only doing that perfectly pro forma. So the 3 options that we're moving forward with are A1. This is a retaining a portion of the existing school. Actually, I'm going to pause on these because I'm just going to talk about each one in detail on the next slides. Going ahead with A1. So this is an option that retains, go to this 3D view. This is an option also required by the MSBA that we study, which is a renovation addition option. So in this one, we retain a portion of the existing school. If you're familiar with the Killam School, this is the classroom wing. The existing school with the admin and cafeteria and gymnasium is kind of in front here to Charles Street. So we've retained just the classroom wing. That becomes the pre-K wing. So that's kind of nice because they have kind of like their own little place. It's a 1-story place. And then we add a 3-story building to house the rest of the school. So I think we and everyone on KSBC and everyone that we talk to thinks that this is not really the best option. The problem is that we look at the site plan, you just really squashed on the site. It's 7.8 acres, but boy, it's surprising how quick you can eat up 7.8 acres with the parking that we need for all the teachers and the play areas. And what happens here is that the field ends up being not really a field. You know, the existing field is like this big. So it's just inadequate to meet the needs of the school and the community. We think there's some other site problems with this as well, but that's the biggest challenge with this option. And again, we're keeping it in because we're required to. Oh, there's a little view. So looking from Haverhill Street, looking toward the site, you can see kind of how different that would look with a 3-story building there. And then from Charles Street, this is kind of the lower point of Charles Street looking up toward the school. You have those same views for each option. Okay, option B1, this is where it gets good. Okay, here we have 2 very interesting options. So an architect getting excited, right? Okay, so first of all, on the site plan, we've figured out something that we think works really nicely, actually. So we have kind of a one-way loop road that comes all the way around. There's an enormous amount of room for all the cars to stack in the morning. So we should get practically all the cars off the road. In addition, it's wide enough that there's room for folks to park all along here and all along there. So during the afternoon pickup, there's a lot of room for parents to park on site. So we're going to clear a lot of the parking, not 100%, but we're going to make a big improvement in the parking situation during afternoon pickup. And that still allows what we understand is important, an important kind of cultural practice for the school, for lack of a better term, of families parking and walking to pick up their kids and having a moment to play with friends and to chat with other parents. We think that's an important thing to retain. Or I should say, we heard from the community that's an important thing to retain. We have a good amount of space left over for a nice size field, multiple different playgrounds for different age groups, a separated bus drop-off service. Even the fire department likes it. And in the plan, the teachers love this plan. So you can see in the green are the pre-K spaces and the blue are the K through 5 spaces. So we have this really nice division where the preschoolers are all together on the first floor. They're all organized kind of around this donut. They have this nice big, we call it the big room because we're not very creative. It's a big room where they can all play, have gross motor, or get several groups of preschoolers together for an activity or a morning meeting, what have you. The cafeteria is on the ground floor, but the gym we put up on the second floor. It's really space efficient. And also, the preschoolers don't use the gym. So it's impossible. It's good for one thing, it's bad for another, it's fine. The gym is really easily accessible from the kindergartners through the 5th graders because it's on the same floor that they are. And then the library is here in the middle of everything. It's like a 2-story space, and all similar to how the existing Killam is, all the classrooms in a way open up onto the library. And we heard that was a really important part of the culture and the quality and the character of Killam to retain that. So all of the classrooms still open up onto the library. The older kids are upstairs, but they open up and they can see the library, and maybe there's another stair that they can get down here right into it. And the teachers just love this because they feel like it brings them all together in as one community. And there's a little view of it as from the bird's eye view, and there's the view of it from the street. So here we have a little design challenge because we feel like this, as the building gets closer to the edge of the street, it starts to, even though it's the same size as the building that's 20 feet away or 50 feet away, it starts to feel bigger and bigger the closer it gets to the edge of the street. So this is a challenge that we have to try to mitigate. Maybe we can do something with stepping or breaking down that volume by using different materials. Maybe we can scooch it back to get a little bit closer to the existing school, but then it's all a balance of these different criteria. See how hard my job is? Okay. E2 is another scheme we think is really great. Exactly the same idea with the parking. We finally figured one thing out and we were like, we're just going with it because it's good. Yeah, the site is like exactly the same. I'm not going to rehash that. Here again, we have that good separation between pre-K, and here the classrooms are broken up in a different way. They're not organized in a donut. They're organized in more of a traditional wing. But there's a really nice thing about this, which is each grade has its own little, see this little thing in the middle? That's like, it's called flex. That's like a shared space outside the classroom for each grade level to share. So each grade level has this really nice kind of organization around, you have two, classrooms on either side, and then they have these little small group rooms, and they have this flex space, and it's just this kind of like first grade zone or this second grade zone. And then the media center is kind of at the place where all those classes join, but it's a little bit different. It's a different feeling than the B1 scheme, which is more of an all happy family together. But you know what it's like having a big family in a small house. It's like you're all just kind of on top of each other, but some people like that. The other advantage of this is that we get a little bit more access to natural light. So the media center has some nice like big windows. In B1 scheme, the media center would only have natural light from above, like from a skylight or a clear story window. And here you can see in this scheme, we've shown E2 like quite a bit further back from the street, and it feels like a little bit more comfortable architecturally. Probably no one cares about this except architects. I think this is my next to last slide, which is these are the three options that KSBC recommended that we go forward with, and I invite your questions and comments. And on August 5th, KSBC will be voting on one scheme, which will be the preferred schematic option. So that will be the scheme that we will go forward with. The next phase of design is called schematic design. And then next June, I believe June 2025, will be the community vote to June, yes. The bond vote. Okay, questions, comments, please.
Two questions. One is on where the buses come through, is the intent that they would enter on one street and exit on the other? They're not going to turn around on site, presumably?
Exactly.
Okay.
I'll just show in one option. So they enter on Haverhill Street. We didn't want to have any other traffic curb cuts on Haverhill Street other than buses or service, because we really want to minimize the amount of coming on to or off of that busy street. So only the buses would come off, and then they join the parking line and exit to Charles Street.
Thank you. And then I think all three of these options have the gym on the second floor. Certainly the last two do. In E2, it's above like the kitchen and like a janitorial room, I think, or custodial room.
Yep.
I think in the prior one, though, it's above the administrative offices and the art room to some degree.
Yep.
Is that a problem to have a gym above spaces that need to be relatively quiet?
Yes, we are working on adjusting this so that we get some of those more sensitive spaces, like you mentioned, the kitchen and the mechanical space, not such a big deal to have under the gym. The admin of the principal's office, she might not appreciate that bouncing ball. So there's things that we can do to mitigate the acoustics, but it's never 100%. So we're working to adjust that in the plan. And what do we have here? This one is also on the second floor, but it's above kitchen and service back of house.
Just a question about the traffic and everything. You changed that up quite a differently from the last one I saw. And wanted to kind of know a little bit more about the reasoning behind that, because I really kind of like the other kind where the teacher parking was not accessible at all, really, to drop off and pick up.
Yeah.
So just kind of curious about that.
I would say it's mainly the fire department. So the loop road that we had previously, which I think we still have on the A1 scheme, the fire department took one look at this curve and said, yeah, no, our trucks are not going to do that. So in this one, we've done kind of a solution that's not a great solution, which is we have this like emergency vehicle drive. So the fire trucks could come in, and then because they can't negotiate this turn, they would go out this way. But it's not a great design solution because those fire lanes that are supposed to be kept clear, first of all, you don't want really to have a fire truck driving through your playground. Second of all, they need that fire lane to be kept clear, and it's really difficult for schools to keep things clear, and they tend to end up getting like, oh, we just installed this bench, and then we just installed this planter, and the fire marshal loses his mind. And so it's mainly for the fire department. I see your point about not having the faculty parking, the parking entrance separate. What we were thinking is that there could be like a two driving lanes here. It's not really, it's shown in and out. That's not supposed to be the case. I was thinking, maybe someone else was thinking differently, that there would be two lanes in. So one of them could be the queuing lane and one could be for the teachers to enter. And then this would be just out.
To kind of follow up on that, too, with the one lane in, one lane out concept, or you only have one entrance point and exit point from Charles Street where traffic could be an issue. With this, yes, I know you're saying one lane still in, one lane still out. But now the people coming out have to get back into the queuing lane potentially if they want to go left. If you're on that screen coming out, up top,
You're here coming out, and you're take a left.
You've got a queuing lane of coming in, they're sitting in the queuing lane.
Oh, because there's someone sitting queuing here to turn left.
Right. Now, granted, I don't know if it's gonna, the queuing lane's gonna be far enough in that it wouldn't matter, but I've seen it all the way back to Wakefield Street and beyond, which would not fit in there, so.
But wouldn't it have been, oh, I see, because you were coming in here and going out there and you would be able to bypass those cars. I see what you're saying.
Now, granted, you're not supposed to turn left out of Killam now. I see too many people do it, but I don't, but I see happen all the time.
Of course, never. These are good points. We'll study them in our next round. Thank you for your thoughts.
I also have a question about the parking. I frequently go down Dana Road and my heart is in my throat with people parking illegally on both sides of the road and seeing children cross between cars to get to the other side. And unless I'm missing something, if there are cars parked on one side and there's the moving lane in the middle, then people are going to go back to their cars through the moving lane. And then the people who are parked are gonna wanna get out. They might have to pick up another child at another school or whatever. So two challenges I see. One is the safety of parents and children getting back to their parked cars. And the other is people getting frustrated because they can't get out of their parking space, and like the gentleman before me said, then they have to wait as that other trail of cars does pick up from their moving vehicles. So I'm a little confused how that logistically and safety-wise works.
Let me take your first question first, which is, let me just see if I understand it. Are you saying you're concerned about folks coming from like the sidewalk here and trying to get into the parking lot there and zipping in between these parked cars and the cars that are queuing.
So I see the 15 parking spots on the right-hand side.
Yep.
If people are picking up their kids from those parking spots, is that, am I wrong?
It's a little bit difficult to see
Parallel.
where exactly the parking spots are, just because of the lighting.
Yeah. So there's parallel parking along the sidewalk. So you're parked on the sidewalk and then you are picking up your kid. So hopefully no kid would need to cross the street.
I see. So you follow the sidewalk all the way up if you're following the rules and go to the entry.
Yep. Okay. Yeah?
Okay.
Okay, a second question. Tell me again.
Gridlock. So if people are in those parking spaces and wanting to, they picked up their children
And they want to get out.
and they want to get out because they have to get somewhere in a rush,
Yeah.
are they then waiting in the line
Yeah,
to get out?
yeah,
And the way drop off and pickup works, some parents are gonna potentially be going to middle school, going to high school, and they're gonna have, or appointments, and they're gonna have a time pressure.
yeah,
So, and
yeah.
that worries me.
Wouldn't get in that queue.
There's no solution.
They wouldn't get in that queue.
If you didn't want to get, yeah, I guess that's right. If you didn't want to get in the queue and get, you're going to get trapped. This is correct. This is the case with any situation where we have, in any of these scenarios. In this scenario where we had the kind of, the loop road, you know, once you get in this queue, you're going to have to go all the way through the queue to get out. Like, there's no, magic exit to get out faster. So if you don't want to wait in the queue, don't get in the queue.
So is there another place for them to, are those 105 spots for the teachers?
These are for the teachers. So there's also the on-street parking where we would, right now, Charles Street doesn't have any official parking. So I should have included that slide here, but we are proposing to kind of adjust Charles Street, move it closer, kind of adjust the lanes, get rid of the grassy median on this side of the street, the south side of the street, so that there's a formal lane of parallel parking. So I guess you would park there if you didn't want to get it in the queue.
I'll just add on that too, that processes and protocols really matter too, like around student dismissals. We've done this in schools that have I'd say a really favorable layout in terms of being able to get people in and out, but just an inefficient system of how they do things, you know, creates gridlock, creates problems. Whereas I'll give up on the other end of the spectrum, if you go to Wood End, when it was, you know, especially under Dr. King, the placard system, you know, there was, you know, not a very favorable setup, but I think, you know, Michonne as a parent knows, I mean, things were very, very efficient. I think we visited a school in Danvers, recently, a new build that had a similar kind of model, and I thought they had a good process to do that. So I think when you kind of have a new design, it becomes even more important for the school-based administration to have clear expectations for what the protocols are going to be and requiring people to adhere to them. I know that's challenging, but we're going to have to beef up, you know, kind of ways to enforce that. Even if we had a more, you know, a perfect layout, if we don't enforce those things tightly, we're going to be, you know, creating, you know, challenges. So I just want to say half the problem with design, but I also say the problem, that's Jenny's challenge, but the other half for us is enforcement. And I think that's a huge part of this.
Thanks, Tom.
I do have another question if I can ask. Yeah, I'm sorry. Is the gyms that you're planning, are they full-size gyms?
Yes, they're full-size gyms, which are about twice the size of the current gym.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
And I'll get a little bit more on that too, is that what that would give us was the MSBA reimbursement is for 6,000 square feet for a gym. So this would be a 7,000 square foot gym, which is slightly bigger, which the difference would be kind of along the sidelines would allow us to get a little over 200 seats from kind of like bleacher seating. We, in partnership, like when a conversation with the rec department, the rec program, we know that there's not a lot of spaces right now to be able to have a game where people can sit. I know Coolidge really, and your toes are on the sideline on like one bench. So we thought that it was important to extend it a little bit outside of what the usual kind of reimbursement is to meet some of the community needs.
All right, we just had a couple of questions in the chat. Actually, it looks like one comment and a couple questions. Says Jenny mentioned that only architects would appreciate the design perspective of not feeling like the new school right on top of Haverhill Street. I can speak for the surrounding neighbors that we very much agree with that sentiment. Her first question is, will neighbors still be able to still enter off of Haverhill Street to walk down to the school to drop their children off? Will there still be a walking path as there is now?
Yes, absolutely. We think that's really important. And in every scheme, we probably didn't emphasize it enough, but there's a sidewalk that connects to Haverhill Street. So yes, you can always just walk into the school.
And her last question, what percentage of Reading Elementary kids will be at Killam because we have 4 other schools?
I don't know the answer to that.
On the numbers right now.
Tom's running the numbers. Did we have another question in the room while we run the numbers?
Yeah, back with, kind of going following up with the gym question, I don't know if it's used now, but as much as it could be, but there is a softball / baseball field at Killam now. That kind of, helping the rec, again, is there gonna be space for that on here, or is that gonna work, or?
Yeah, we looked at fitting in a regulation softball field like under 12, and it's like half the site, more than half the site. So I guess what they have now obviously isn't that big, so it must be like in some non-regulation. At the moment, we're not thinking that there would be a softball, but this is potentially could be further discussion with the rec department. I mean, it's possible to, co-locate them to have soccer on top of softball.
So soccer, you kind of trying to put a spot for soccer?
Right.
Okay.
Under 12 regulation soccer field is what we've got in every scheme except the A1.
Okay.
Our projections right now would be right around a quarter of elementary age students would then be, then 2 other follow-ups. One is the legislation around transportation, although this question is just K through middle school actually. So we wouldn't have to worry about having to provide transportation for students who are not required on their IEP for students outside of 2 miles at that level. And there was one, that was the question of start time too. So I just looked back at the traffic kind of study, and it was recommending that in the morning, that there's at least a 10-minute buffer between the K-5 arrival and the pre-K arrival. It says at least 10 and ideally 15. I would still say we're trying to think, is there ways to even make that a little bit further, and then at least 15 minutes of a buffer in the dismissal time. So if you want some actual times behind that, we know that right now the sort of arrival time at Killam parent starts 8:10 between 8:15.
That was what I was gonna ask, is the arrival time is 8:15, but the late bell is 8:25.
So it's the 15 minutes tacked on to the 8:25 start. So it wouldn't work with the original.
Exactly.
So 15 minutes back from the actual bell, which we have had conversations back and forth to, is that enough? The drawback is if we extend it further out, that's just a shorter day for Rise too. Our day is actually a little bit longer at Rise than what it is for a lot of surrounding pre-K programs. So I think our pre-K administration was saying they were okay if we started, around 8:40, and then we're able to do this dismissal at the latest starting at 2:30.
Just 2 things. So currently the baseball field is only used for T-ball and minors softball. So there's essentially no outfield play in either of those. So I think as long as we're willing to put a dirt diamond in part of it, you probably can get away with using that field for those leagues. And then Linda, one of the things you were talking about earlier with the traffic, I just wanted to sort of comment. One of the things I really like about this sort of loop structure is, 2 things. One is if you look at the sort of the loop on the right there, there's actually an opportunity to bail out and not get into the drop-off / pickup line. So if you're parked in the bottom half of where those spots are, you can bail out without waiting for the cars that are actively picking up or dropping off kids. And then the spots at the top are after that drop-off sort of bottleneck, right? So anybody parked in those spots also presumably has a pretty easy out, from the parking lot as well. So I think it's actually better than probably any other school in terms of, having some really easy ways to get out.
Any other questions? Linda?
Sorry, at the risk of asking too many questions. The other question that I had was, I know it's wonderful to have the library in the center of all of the classrooms. Has there been a discussion about sound deviation from when there are activities and stuff going on with the kids? Either side, whether it's in the classrooms or whether it's in the library. And I'm sure there has been, but
Yes.
that's going through my brain.
Yes. We have talked about it. You can imagine that it's a trade-off, right? Openness and togetherness means also hearing one another's sounds. But I think the approach is basically that we keep the classrooms as, well sound sealed so that the activity that's happening in there is not kind of mixed with the library. But yes, the activity that's happening outside of classrooms would be heard in the library and vice versa. And that's a trade-off of that model. There's a question online about, is this the forum to ask about how much the additional non-reimbursable cost is to taxpayers associated with bringing Olive Rise here?
Yes, I'm going to go from memory, but I believe what we're looking at right now, we have ranges. We're trying to nail down, as you can see, we have multiple options here, 10 options, and then there's sub options off of each of those. But in general, what we're looking at, I believe for the RISE portion of it is about a $10 to $12 million total project value.
Yeah,
and of that $10 to $12 million, about $4 to $5 million of that would be reimbursable money that you would be getting back from them. So it's about $4 million, $5 million of additional money you're getting from the state to help pay for that RISE program.
Next community meeting is August 14th, right here, 7 p.m. And we will be presenting the preferred solution that the KSBC votes on.
Thank you, everyone.